Hello and welcome back to the renovation project, where we're going to be pressing on with the build today, which is quite exciting. It seems to have been a while, even though I think we had a building video fairly recently. The floor is down and is dry, and the next thing that we're going to move on to is a little bit of work on the walls. Not sure about your choice of carpet.
It's lovely, isn't it? I like things nice and tidy. The floor that goes over this be an NHL and sand slab, but we also need to be able to fit a layer of cork along the edges that
almost like a skirting board, right?
Yeah, exactly. So 100mm high, 30mm thick. It acts as expansion for the slab, so when it gets heated, because it's going to have underfloor heating in it, it will push a little bit, and you don't want it to crack and stuff. So you have this cork to allow a little bit of expansion, but it also acts as insulation between the slab and the stone walls. And when we're doing this dubbing out, for sure, lime will fall right where we want to put the cork. So rather than have to come and chip it all back out again, I figured this was just easier. And it also just protects the whole limecrete floor from our boots and scuffing up anything.
And in case anyone's confused, we will be removing the cardboard before we lay the next slab.
Yes, this is just a protective layer while we're plastering. Our original plan had been that we would have the slab down and then do all the walls and plastering, and then this wouldn't have been necessary. But there's been a slight delay on our underfloor heating sourcing solution, and so we've decided rather than to wait, we would start, particularly in this room, because this is a room where our heating system is going to go. So we thought we'd start in here, get a head start, and then eventually I'm hoping that we can get the floor down in all of the other rooms so that we don't have to do this in those rooms.
The preparation is done. We are carpeted in what will be the downstairs bathroom, carpeted with cardboard, and we're going to do a hot mix. This is a different kind of lime to what we used on the floor. That was using natural hydraulic lime, which is a water setting kind of lime. This one is an air setting lime. This is calcium oxide, and it is very highly reactive with water. It does also come in granules, but we've got the powdered form because it's the only kind that we can get around here. And the way that it works is we combine lime and sand and water, and that kicks off a chemical reaction to slake the lime to turn it into something that is more stable and wonderfully buttery, sticky, and nice to work with in terms of getting it on the walls. And this is a natural, breathable, soft kind of mortar that we'll work with to fill in a lot of the gaps and the holes before we come and do the plastering. We're going to do the mix in this bucket to kind of control all the heat and so that it doesn't spray everywhere. 1 part lime, 3 parts sand, and 1 and a bit water. Usually I would do 1.5, but this lime doesn't really expand very much. Safety first is important in this case because it is quite a violent reaction. I have my eyes and I have my mask. I have some gloves as well. I hate wearing gloves.
Only time you wear gloves.
Oh, I hate wearing gloves. That's one of our sand.
So we'll also talk about the use of a glue barrel rather than a metal barrel, which is what most people use.
Yeah, we haven't got the metal one, so we used a plastic one.
And it works fine.
It does.
It does get hot, so we wouldn't do a mix bigger than this, but it works fine.
So I'm just making like a well in the bottom. The sand is quite dry, but just going to try and get the lime as far down as I can. So our lime goes in. Trying to be careful not to make too much dust. Now I've seen some people do it where they put the next sand on top and then the water, but I find that doesn't tend to mix so well, so I do the water next and then the last sand on top straight away.
So it generates a lot of heat, and so we're going to try and keep that heat in.
Just listen to it. It sounds like it's going to explode, but it doesn't.
So, we've done this inside and we've done it outside. I think we did it inside first, and then we thought we should probably do this outside. But because there's a lot more wind and sometimes rain, and you certainly don't want any rain coming into contact with the lime, but also you don't want it blowing around in your face because it is so reactive. If you get it in your eyes, if you breathe it in the dust even, it can be pretty bad. So I actually like doing it in a controlled environment inside where there's no elements to deal with. Now that we've done it a few times, it's still a little nerve-wracking, but we kind of understand it a little bit more in terms of what to expect. Now that this is cooking, we're going to leave it for about 20 minutes just to finish slaking. It's already starting to calm down quite nicely, but the heat that stays in there will continue to cook the lime, and then we'll give it a mix up in about 20 minutes and then start getting it on the walls.
This building was built back in the 1930s, and we actually see quite a lot of evidence of this kind of lime being used around the place. One of our outbuildings, it's actually used it as the mortar between the bricks, but upstairs all the inside plastering and the internal lath and plaster walls were all done with quicklime or hot lime, however you want to talk about it. And there's a reason for that. Is number one, it's highly available here in Portugal, and it's very affordable. I think it's a little bit less than the cost of cement, but more so it's the correct material to use for a stone building that doesn't have a damp proof course. So the lime allows moisture to pass in and out of the wall. So in our case, moisture will be coming up through the ground because the stone walls are built straight onto the clay earth, and that moisture then needs to be able to come out rather than being trapped behind cement or a gypsum plaster. And so this lime allows it. It's a very breathable material. There's loads of research and opinions and white papers. There's a whole book about hot lime versus NHL, the stuff that we use on the floor. And so that's one of the big reasons, is it's a traditional material that this building was originally constructed with. And now that we're doing downstairs, which wasn't originally plastered, we want to make sure that the walls can breathe.
The other thing is about the strength of it and the stones.
So yeah, we have a mix of stones on our walls, and some are really hard and some are not. So these bigger ones are very hard, and then there's smaller ones that are softer.
They're almost like hard compacted clay.
Yeah, and so NHL, or the stuff natural hydraulic lime, which is what we've used for the floor, any hydraulic lime, is too hard for these stones. And quicklime, or viva, is much softer, so it's going to work with the stones better. And what that means is you want your mortar to be no harder than the stones in your wall. So most of the NHLs are too hard for walls. They're fine for like a floor like this, and that's because they're only butting up a small amount against the stone wall. But a lot of the research says your mortar should be softer than your stones. And because we have a wide variety of stones, you need to go for your softest stone. And quicklime will harden over the years as it's exposed to more and more air, but won't get as hard as like a hydraulic lime does.
Or a cement.
Or a cement.
It's time to see if our lime is ready. So we're going to lift this off and take a look. Oh, look at that. You can still feel the heat coming off it.
It's steaming up the...
And it's steaming up the lens. There we go.
Safety is very important business, as much as we sometimes like to joke about the safety police. But when we're dealing with the raw quicklime, the powdered stuff, it's dangerous because it's highly reactive and highly unstable. But now, when we start mixing, because it is quite warm, there can be pockets of steam trapped in here. So sometimes you can get dust clouds. And so I always try to go slow with the mix, always wear all the PPE, all the things. But it's just one of those things that once you've done a few times, you kind of get used to it a bit more. Although it's always something that does not fill me with joy.
So because of the potential for trap steam, I'm mixing from the top down and from like the outside in, rather than plunging the mixer straight to the bottom, where it could potentially release a lot of steam quickly and kick stuff up in my face.
So there we go, that is our mix done. It's not bad, it's holding quite nicely, which means it's got a nice kind of sticky consistency. So this is a brand of lime or quicklime called Maxical. And it's different to the one that we used a lot last year, which I think is called Baptista or something like that. It seems to get more sticky and fluffy and is really nice to work with, almost like the consistency of like icing a cake or something like that. This stuff, it kind of doesn't seem to swell up as much, and you can see and feel the sand particles, the sharp sand particles, a lot more. It'll be absolutely fine for the purpose of filling in cracks and holes, which we call dubbing out. But yeah, I will probably try and use the other brand when we get to the actual plastering part, because it has a nicer feel to it. So this is now ready to use. We'll use it hot. That's absolutely fine to do. It does also keep for a long time as well. You can use it cold. We probably won't use this amount all today, but we'll just cover it back over and it will be good for a week, maybe more. If it starts to dry out a bit on top, you can just add a little bit of water and mix it in again, and it's good to use for a long time. As long as it doesn't get too much air to it, then it will last quite some time. So, like, the more you work it, the more kind of sticky and fat it gets. And that just makes it easier to hold on the trowel and to push onto the wall. But yeah, I mean, it feels a lot coarser than I'm used to seeing it with the other brand. But it will be absolutely fine. I mean, this is still sticking to the hawk, no problem. So this is a nice example of a terrible wall. This was covered in sand and cement render, which we removed with a hammer drill. And so there's lots of irregularities in the stonework, but there's like some massive holes. There's these little nooks, which may have been for some purpose back in the day, who knows. But it would be very difficult to plaster straight onto this because there's so many holes, so many irregularities. So this exercise that we're doing now is kind of filling in some of the bigger holes to make it easier. And here's one that I did earlier. So this one over here, this was a couple of mixes. I think, in fact, I actually started this last year. Just when we had a bit of downtime and a bit of lime left over, I went and kind of filled in some of the cracks here. And it's not a pretty job. It's not perfectly smooth, but it's not supposed to be. It's just to kind of fill all of those big holes so that we've got a slightly easier time when we come to put on the first coat of plaster.
So why are you spraying down?
So the stones are very dry and very absorbent, and the lime is very moist, and we don't want all of the thank you, we don't want all of the moisture or the water in the lime being sucked out too quickly and into the stone or by the stone, because then it will dry too quickly and it will crack and shrink, and we won't get a good job, a good finish. So it's just a case of going through, getting a bit on the trowel and pushing it into the holes.
And of course we are not professional plasterers, lime persons, any of that.
This is very much a DIY job.
We've just worked out how to do it by doing it.
Yeah. I mean, it's not an exact science, it's just a case of filling some of these larger holes so that when we come to do the plastering, it's a slightly smoother surface to work with, and we don't have to we don't put too much on in one go, because then it doesn't dry and harden properly.
We're talking about the top coat, right? Not this coat.
Well, the same with this. We don't want to go too deep with the lime because then the air doesn't get to it, and it's an air-setting lime. It absorbs carbon dioxide from the air, and that's what causes it to harden. Whereas things like cement or NHL are hydraulic settings, so they set but when they come into contact with water. I mean, this is fattening up a little bit, but
Just needs a bit more water than other stuff.
yeah, maybe mixing it more would help actually, but yeah, it's not the best.
There's a mess on my floor already.
Well, that's why we put the cardboard down. So it's basically just a lot more of that. It's not particularly difficult, but it is a bit fiddly and very time consuming. I think we're going to get Kylie to have a go and see how she gets on. Then we'll probably just stick the time lapse on so you can watch us work.
I mean, I would just do it a bit slower and smaller sections than what you do. Because that's how I work.
Yeah, it's working fine though.
Yeah. This is probably definitely not the technique that most plasterers employ. However, you know, getting the job done.
Well, why don't you try and lift some of it onto the trowel and see.
Yeah, I don't have the coordination. I don't know how to do that.
Well, now's a great time to practice and a few thousand people are watching.
How do you do that?
When it's like this and you kind of chop it all up, then it doesn't stick together as well. Whereas if you get a bit on there and you kind of tilt this towards you, get a bit less, then you can use this to kind of push it away and it balances on the end. Then when you drop it in theory, that starts to get more sticky. So now it's not going to fall off.
Show me.
And then you can press in and up. So it's like this kind of motion. And then you've got it on the trowel and you can stick it somewhere. And then you can go in and, you know, mess it around and get it into the holes and what have you.
See? Oh, this one's going to take a while to learn.
There you go. That works.
Okay, and then like that.
Yeah, perfect.
I'm going to try not to put it on my floor.
You're going to be more worried about the floor. Look at you go.
It's surprisingly I say this all the time. Exhausting. It's very sweaty because there's no airflow in this room. And I don't know what time we started today, 11. And it's now what, 5:30?
And we did a little patch over here,
and
then you finished where I had not finished.
So yeah, it's going to take us a bit. We think this room is going to take us a week just to dub it out, doing half days every day. Because we are doing a Portuguese boot camp next week, mornings only. Few things to say. I know that the lime is not good on the skin, but it's so hot, there's just no way we could wear a long sleeve shirt in here. So we will wash it off and do a good moisturize because it dries out the skin a lot.
It does, yeah.
But it's so hot that it's very humid in here. There's no, as I said, there's no airflow. Should have brought the fan in actually.
And how did you find it after your initial dislike of the trowel and the hawk combo?
I just worked out how to do it. I started this section with my hands and that didn't work, and then I just persevered until I worked out how it works. It's just slow going, it's fiddly.
Like everything,
like
but you got it done.
We do.
I'm really impressed. I think it's great for the first time doing it.
Maybe I should have been a professional plasterer in my career. No, that would have not been good.
But you know what the best thing is? The very best thing of this whole experience, this day of mixing and troweling and whatever this is really called, is it means I don't have to do it all myself. Which is very exciting because
we like to share things.
Well, we like to share the pain, share the work. But yeah, it's a big job to do this whole house. We are going to have some of the walls, some of the stone walls pointed when our skills improve a little bit, and so that we can leave them exposed, but also make sure that, you know, there's not a whole load of mud and earth that's going to fall out of them at any point. But this is a good way to get experience with the material, get experience with the tools, get the technique and all that kind of stuff. So
this is also the room that it doesn't matter.
Yeah, and this room it doesn't matter because it's a utility room where we're going to have, you know,
laundry for those.
Laundry. So it's a room that I will barely come into and won't have to look at the crimes that I've committed all over the walls. But yeah, I think this is a good day's work, even though it never feels like we get a huge amount done. It's nice to be making progress on something other than digging outside or limecrete floors inside. So I guess we'll probably have quite a lot more lime-related, plaster-related, pointing-related content. So if this is something that you need to do, want to know more about, send questions and stuff, and we'll see if we can help and answer them in any way that we can. Do remember, we're not professionals. We're just working this out as we go.
Obvious.
But yes, it should be obvious by now. So I think we'll wrap this up for now. Thank you for watching. We'll see you in the next one. Bye for now. Sore back?
No, the shoulders. From, I guess, this motion or this motion.